Hello everyone and welcome back. My name's X and we got another video for you today. Today we're going to be covering hit markers. This is an interesting topic because I've always wanted to talk about this one because it's really interesting because it's like two different polar arguments that happen here. There's, what the community wants versus what 343 and mainly the industry is going for. So this is kind of an interesting one to really talk about here. So a lot of people argue and say, wow, 343's really ruined it by putting hit markers into Halo. And what's really interesting about that is that that's not actually entirely true. Hit markers were actually introduced into Halo PC. That's right, Halo CE on PC actually had hit markers. See, there's different kinds of hit markers. There's visual and audio. What we all talk about when we talk about hit markers, we talk about the visual ones that we see. But there's actually audio ones, and I'll actually play a little clip here just in case you guys were actually curious about this.
Double kill, killing spree.
Yeah, I was kind of curious myself when I heard about this. I was like, wait a second, there's actually hit markers? And then I realized, holy crap, I didn't even realize that. I didn't even, hear that at all when I was playing on PC. I never, recalled this, and then all of a sudden now I'm hearing it, I'm like, wait a second, I actually kind of do remember that. And it was something that I just never realized at all, and apparently was there. So it's caused kind of a controversy though with it being around here. So many games are doing it, not just Halo. We got even Battlefield doing it, where you think, wait, Battlefield's doing this? So it's kind of interesting to see that. And I wanted to put everyone's argument forth on this whole situation. I wanted to hear both sides' arguments, so I heard everyone out because, to be honest, straightforward, I am against hit markers, but as someone who wants to do this video and I want to do it, try to leave it as unbiased as possible, even though I'm giving my own opinions here, I also wanted to hear everyone else. I wanted to actually curious of if there was people that were for this. And so I actually heard some valid arguments. So I want to give out their arguments first here because these are kind of interesting ones that are kind of actually I can relate some information about this. And again, I only do arguments that I find valid. I don't, like, if you guys watch my Battle Royale video, I excluded almost every argument against Battle Royale because of the fact that it was almost like there was no real argument. They were just constantly saying, oh, it's just a Fortnite has it. If you don't like it, go play Fortnite and all this stuff. It's like, that's not a valid argument for it. If you want to argue for or against something, you gotta argue the exact subject at hand, not what something else is doing. You don't say, oh well, we don't want hit markers because Call of Duty has it. That's not addressing the problem. That's you just doing a fallacy argument. It's not actually staying on topic of what why we should or shouldn't have it. You're just saying, oh, because another game has it, we shouldn't have it. That's not really actually addressing it in a debating manner. So I decided to again hear everyone's arguments out and see from there. So here's one of the a couple of the arguments for it. One of the arguments for it, which is the strongest one out of all of them, is that it's for the hit detection that is accurately reading the information back to you. See, one of the things I really noticed when this person was describing to me, hit detections not being registered properly. Sometimes they'll look like you're hitting your target, but you're not actually hitting your target. And hit markers are more reliable. I can actually find that's actually very valid, actually, because the reason being is when I've been playing Halo 3, which I've been playing a lot of Halo 3 on MCC lately, and even in regular original OG Halo 3, the same exact experience I was having. Is the inconsistency. People try to argue that, we don't need hit markers because of shield flare or shield glare, whatever you guys want to call it. I think it's shield flare. But the problem with it is it's not always accurate. Even though a BR is supposed to be a 4-shot kill, for the most part, I don't think they actually adjust the damage from Halo 2 to Halo 3. They just adjust some mechanics on it, so it's harder to get 4 shots on people. From a longer range. The thing is that I could just spray 8 to 12 bursts into someone and it just seems like it would do nothing to them. Like some of the shots weren't even counting. So that's what really got frustrated for a bunch of people was Halo 3 where there's some inconsistencies The thing was, it's also in part because Halo 3 is projectile based rather than hit scan, which is fortunately something that gets more affected by lag, and so that can be very irritating because unfortunately there's nothing to do against lag. But the thing is that if you know that your shot's not hitting, then you know, okay, my shot's not actually connecting to that person, so maybe I shouldn't run in there and try and finish him off because I'm not actually doing any damage to him. That could definitely tell a player how to handle a situation better if they know that they're not even, their shots aren't even connecting. And also, this stuff helps the developer see like, oh wow, holy crap, what's going on here? Apparently it's not detecting. And by seeing the visual hit markers, they can tell. You can't really tell from looking all the way across the map if the person's shields are flaring up. And unfortunately, we can't really use theater mode in Halo 5 because, well, that's a whole different other story for another time. But the fact of the matter is that when you're shooting that, you can get instant notification while you're playing if the hit detection is there, and you can actually relay this information to the developers better. Some people say, why don't we just use a test environment? But unfortunately, you can't just do that every time they do an update. You have a test environment. I'm not sure if 343 really wants to go with that. I mean, that's a possibility, but that's going to be a lot of extra work just so that we don't have a hit markers. Also, another argument for it is that people become, reliant on it. I know that doesn't sound like very valid, but the fact is, if you start changing stuff and going backwards and start removing stuff, you're not really actually necessarily making it great for everyone. You're only making it great for certain people. That is, a valid argument to say that it is. It's not really the strongest argument, but it's definitely something, true, that if you're playing one way and then all of a sudden they remove a certain feature, and then you're like, wait a second, where did all these features go? And then you start doing that with everything, it's gonna kind of feel like they're just stripping the game apart rather than adding it. I understand that some people just don't like it, so they think it'll be an improvement, but it might be vice versa. Some people might like it. Also, there's kind of like a little bit of a placebo effect that people argue. I unfortunately don't have any statistics to actually prove this, but I've actually noticed this myself when playing, that when I see those hit markers, I tend to be more accurate, and I also tend to pace my shots more. Otherwise, if I had a SMG in Halo 2 or Halo 3, I would actually pretty much be spraying that and not knowing where my shots were going. But in Halo 5, when I'm shooting, I'm actually being more consistent with my shots because I know where they're actually going to. And so I've actually noticed that if when I'm shooting a weapon, I tend to be more accurate with my shots, and I tend to pace more accurately. So that plus other things like seeing the visual ridicule and all that stuff. But seeing that visual hit marker kind of does help, and I noticed that I play a lot better in, say, like some other the newer Halo games than I did in the older ones. I don't think it's just entirely just because of the way the game's played to be more easy. I also noticed that visually when I see hit markers, I tend to have like this kind of gratification feel when I'm playing. Then I feel that I'm actually hitting my targets and whatnot. I tend to seem to feel like I'm doing better because of it, rather than where a lot of times in Halo 3 I shoot and I get weird situations that happen. One of the worst situations that I've had is where I'm playing Infection, and it's an infection game type that the zombies have no shields. So one shot at a good effective range should kill a enemy with a sword. And I've had so many damn times where I have shot someone, and for some reason, even though there's no shield on them, it does this weird shield popping effect on the character, and it didn't kill them. So I shoot, it does this visual effect on them, and then they stab me. Now I'm sitting there going, what the hell? I just shot him with a full load of, buck rounds at this dude, and he just goes, oh, I know, I'm just going to brush it off, no big deal, and then stabs me, and I end up getting killed, and, end up on the infected team. And I'm like sitting there going, that doesn't seem right at all. I swear I shot him. There's so many times this happened, and it's frustrated the hell out of me. So I have to do, I have to say that they are right in some of those arguments for hit markers. And I can tell you from my own experience when I was developing one of my own games, it was just a small game just for one of the projects when I was getting my game art design degree, was that I was making a beer pong game, and I would have the game read off to me that the ball went in the cup, because sometimes it would give me a score, or sometimes it wouldn't give me a score, even though the ball landed in the cup. And so I'd have this thing that would read off on the side and tell me goal or something like that. Every time I threw the ball in the cup, I would make sure it read off to me that it did in fact read that the ball triggered the effect. So that way I knew if it did go in there, it didn't trigger it, that something was wrong. And so it actually does help. So there are some arguments for it that really are valid. Then there's also the arguments against it. The arguments against it are so much more well known by the community. One of the biggest problems with it is the phishing problem. That's what I've heard many people call it, and it's definitely like that. It's like echolocation, where basically you don't know if an enemy's out there. So whether you have a Hydra, a rocket launcher, the Answer saw where it has explosive rounds, or you have a frag, you can just chuck it out there in the middle of nowhere and just hope if you chuck it around a doorway or a corner or something like that, or a rock, and you get that little hit marker and you go, oh, there's someone around there. But back in the day, you didn't know that. You could have thrown a grenade there, killed someone, or hit someone almost to death, killed them, and you could have gone around and finished them, but you didn't know that they were around the corner. So you might as well just run past that and not even realize that. So it actually changes how people play, especially on the competitive level. Instantly people are already like, oh shoot, there's someone around that corner. But in Halo 3, Halo 2, that wasn't a thing. If you didn't, actually know the person was around there, you could chuck the grenades all day and not get them. And it's actually changed a lot of the gameplay style. I've had situations where I was around the corner and people were chucking grenades, but because it was Halo 3 and they couldn't see me and I was only taking a small amount of damage, they didn't realize that, and they'd come around the corner thinking it was all coast clear, and then I would just melee them and finish them off. But if you were to do that in Halo 5, I can't do that. If I get hit, all of a sudden they know when they're going around the corner that I'm going to be around there and I'm already injured, so I can have a fighting chance, and if it's a dead end where I can't back out anywhere, I'm screwed. So it actually does change the gameplay dynamic quite quickly. So there is that argument there, that it does cause that problem now because of that, having that in there. It takes away some competitive elements. And also another argument is people say that, well, we already have shield flare, and unfortunately, like as I said, shield flare, it's definitely something that would have worked back in the day, but with so many more new mechanics being added to the game, it's caused it to not always be accurate to always say, oh, we can just rely on the shield flare, because sometimes the shield flare is not always perfect. But people argue that back in the day, shield flare, that was kind of the thing that it kind of indicates to you that, hey, their shield's about ready to pop. And you knew that if you did like 3 bursts of your BR, you knew that 1 more burst was a headshot and you got the kill. But unfortunately, like with Halo 3, there's some inconsistencies there. So, but again, the argument was that shield flare was supposed to be there to help you. Another argument too against it is camouflage. Camouflage was supposed to help you be sneaky and everything. And I've had situations where the person didn't even see me, but they just randomly shoot a shot and they get that hit marker and they go, oh, I didn't see one there, but I got a hit marker. Hey, there might be someone that's invisible. And unfortunately, that just gave you away right there. But if it was, something else where someone was shooting across the map and they just happened to hit me when I was camouflaged, then they didn't see me, then they just, they wouldn't even notice it because they wouldn't see the shield flare, they wouldn't see the hit marker. So that's another, arguments for it, or for removing hit markers. So I asked the community what their opinions are, whether we should get rid of it, whether we should keep it, whether we should change it up, and so I wanted to hear what everyone had to say here, and I decided to ask the community. But of course, as you can see, they strongly are against it. But as a couple of videos I've seen, including Shayway's, it's pretty obvious that they're not gonna probably get rid of it. I think unfortunately the way the market's going, the way they're trying to please so many more crowds by still trying to keep it competitive, but at the same time being welcoming to casuals and trying to mix so much in there, that they're probably going to keep it. I mean, Bonnie Ross did say something that kind of, like that one interview, I think kind of just pretty much laid it out where they're going to go. same thing with the Spartan abilities. The way that they were talking about saying, oh well, Halo 4, I think we did great on the campaign, but Halo 5, but the multiplayer we didn't do as great, but Halo 5 was kind of the opposite, or I don't know the exact quotes that she said, but if you do remember that interview, which a couple of people reference a lot, it kind of sounds like what she's referencing is that Halo 5 is where they want the multiplayer to be. So it sounds like what they're doing in Halo Infinite is just taking the multiplayer and making it more of what it already was in Halo 5, which is kind of what I was thinking, because of the whole fact that they're using a pro team for their multiplayer testing. So it seems like that's the direction that they're going to go in, that they want to hire on a pro team like they did with Halo 5, because they want to keep it as sweaty as it was in Halo 5. And a lot of us didn't really enjoy that kind of sweatiness, because it wasn't the kind of competitiveness that made Halo what it was. But unfortunately, I think that's the way with esports nowadays. It's just going to be this kind of way it's going to happen. But maybe there's a way they could change it up and still keep everyone happy. A couple ideas that I had opinions on. Everyone has their different opinions. Not entirely removing it, whether not entirely keeping it. Some things that people argue, which the one I think is the most fair possibility that we can have is we keep visual hit markers, but they don't show up. They don't show up when you do explosive damage. The only way you get, instead, you get a audio sound that is very faint, but if you're paying attention, it'll actually be there. So it's not something that you necessarily can just, tell like it's going to really stand out, but it's going to be something that if you hear very carefully in the explosion, that you might actually go, oh, okay, there might be someone actually there. But it's going to be something that you have to be paying attention to. So it's not just, you can see it on the screen, you have to actually be listening for it. And also the possibility of like no visual or audio hit markers at all if the player is camouflaged. This way it ensures that camouflage doesn't just remove its entire use just because someone can chuck a grenade or they can shoot across the map and get like a small amount of damage on you. That camouflage still has its purpose. That's my opinion. Necessarily, I would think is the best. I heard other people give their own arguments. Some people said that it should be removed from the arena playlist, that it shouldn't be there at all. That's a possibility. Other people say that it should just not be in MLG at all, but it couldn't be in arena. Some people say that it should only be in campaign. Some people say it should be in anything but campaign. There's people that say that it should be sound only, like Halo CE. There's different arguments for and against it. There's tons of things out there that people want to see, people don't want to see. What's interesting to me is I actually like even though I knew hit markers were in Halo 4, I just didn't really know that they were there. Like I didn't actually look for them. I didn't really notice it until Halo 5. Even Halo 2 Anniversary, they were like there, but I just really didn't pay all that much attention to them. It was like Halo 5 where they made it really animated stand out more noticeably. Also, what's really interesting is a lot of people say this is all because of 343's fault and whatnot. I think that's not true. I think that's just the change in market, because let's look at Bungie, where everyone says, oh, if Bungie was still making Halo games, this wouldn't be a problem. But they made Destiny, and what does Destiny have, especially Destiny 1? Hit markers. They had hit markers in the game. So in reality, I think it's a changing market. Unfortunately, I don't think this is something that's 343's fault. It's the changing market. It's just how shooters are now, and that's just going to be how it is, unfortunately. But everyone can have their own opinion. I gave my own opinion, the community gave theirs, and definitely leave your own opinion down in the comment section. Whatever you feel, what's your take on this situation, whether we should keep it, whether we should move it. Give this video a like if you liked it. If you didn't like it, dislike it, and also subscribe, hit the notification if you want more updates. Just give me other feedback if you want in the comment section as well. I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say. Anyways, I'm gonna wrap this up here. You guys all have a great rest of your day, and you all take care. Peace.
Yeah.